Welcome back to the Historian. Tonight, we look at spectral scribes, the encrypted chronicles of the invisible chroniclers. We embark on a journey to discover the birth of these silent recorders, the individuals who left behind words without names. Long before the printing press revolutionized access to information, hidden hands in dimly lit rooms penned works that would shape the world, though the authors mostly remained in the shadows. In ancient Mesopotamia, around 3100 BCE, the Sumerians were the pioneers of writing. In the bustling city of Uruk, they etched cuneiform onto clay tablets, each notch and line a step beyond oral history. These marks did not just inventory goods, they laid the foundation for literature and royal decrees. As the cuneiform evolved, so did the scope of what these scribes recorded, yet many chose to remain unseen and unnamed, perhaps for status, perhaps for anonymity, or perhaps their names were on the tongues of only a select few, lost over time. Millennia passed, and the world saw the rise and fall of empires. In the cradles of civilization like Egypt, scribes held significant roles in society. The hieroglyphs they carved bore testament to the divine and the mundane alike. Unlike their Sumerian predecessors, many Egyptian scribes were recognized and even revered. Yet, even in their society, vast catalogs of anonymous work laid the groundwork for administration and culture. Traveling through time and space, we find ourselves in ancient China, where another form of invisible chronicling unfurled. Here, under the dynasties long before imperial unification, scribes meticulously recorded the lives of kings and the laws of their land. These chroniclers operated under the watchfulness of rulers who valued their precision and loyalty. However, their names remain largely unadorned in history books, the focus resting more on the events they captured than on their personal identities. In ancient Greece, libraries slowly began to flourish. These hubs of knowledge, notably in Athens and the famed Library of Alexandria in Egypt, housed scrolls of philosophies, sciences, and histories, much of which were copied by anonymous scholars. The Greeks valued discourse and debate, which survived through writings inscribed by unseen pens. These scrolls and the language within shaped thought and conversation throughout the Mediterranean and beyond, spreading Greek ideas to civilizations that followed. Further west, in the Roman Empire, scribes held roles similar to those in Egypt, documenting the workings of an empire that spanned continents. Their contributions, while uncelebrated at the time, provided a record that has become indispensable to historians piecing together ancient Roman life. Crossing seas and barriers, we arrive in the Islamic Golden Age, a time of extraordinary advancements and learning. Scholars and scribes in the Arab world cataloged vast quantities of Greek, Persian, and Indian knowledge, translating them into Arabic. Many of these texts were treated with great esteem, yet again, the hands that scribed them often remained without recognition. In medieval Europe, the monasteries housed the copies of sacred texts and classical works. Monks, with painstaking care, transcribed the texts by hand. Their efforts preserved much of the knowledge from the classical era, serving as a bridge between the ancient and modern worlds. Yet, many of these diligent scribes are known only by the signatures they sometimes carefully inserted on the margins. Each era brought its own style of written language, and each civilization had its own invisible chroniclers, filling libraries and scrolls with the sum of their world. They served as guardians of knowledge, recording the thoughts and events of their time, leaving behind a rich trove for future generations. These foundational texts they produced became windows into their worlds, whispering stories of humanity's journey. Now, as we linger on the threshold of this historical exploration, we remember these silent scribes, their hands moving in rhythm with the flow of ink. Their lives might remain shrouded in the anonymity they embraced, but their legacy endures, quietly continuing to teach and inspire long after their quills rested. The earliest forms of cryptic narratives emerged from the earth itself. Stone and clay became the canvas for ancient societies to inscribe the stories, laws, and accounts that would lay the groundwork for civilization as we know it. Around 3000 BCE, in the heart of Mesopotamia, people began to use soft clay tablets as surfaces to record their world. The method was simple yet profound. A reed stylus pressed into the clay formed wedge-shaped marks, known as cuneiform. These first cryptic narratives were practical. In Uruk, the bustling center of early Sumerian society, cuneiform was used to track trade and manage resources. Yet, as scribes honed their craft, the use of these tablets extended beyond mere commerce. They began to chronicle the age-old tales of gods and men, stories that thrilled and instructed, slowly transforming into early literature. Although many of their names are lost, these scribes filled tablet after tablet, piece by piece, building stories that outlasted their lifespans. Meanwhile, in the valleys of the Nile around 2600 BCE, the Egyptians took to stone. Hieroglyphs carved into temple walls, monuments, and tombs told rich, intricate stories of pharaohs and deities. These symbols served not only as religious scripts, but also as societal chronicles. They told of harvests, ceremonies, and the flooding of the Nile. Skilled artisans and scribes wielded chisels to immortalize epic stories in the hard surfaces. These inscriptions didn't just reflect daily life, they were aspirational. The hieroglyphs ensured that the names and deeds of pharaohs would live eternally, celebrating the divine nature of their rule. The task of recording these monumental tales was significant, and although some scribes gained fame, very few names survived the sands of time, their stories living on largely through the grandeur of their work. Not so far in the dusty plains of the Indus Valley, around 2500 BCE, people were etching even more enigmatic symbols into small seals. The script of this civilization remains undeciphered, posing one of the great mysteries of ancient scripts. The Indus script marks an intriguing instance of silent communication. Evidence hints at trade, governance, and perhaps religious connotations, but its true voice is lost to history. As we wander eastward around 1200 BCE, the Shang dynasty of ancient China adopted oracle bones as their medium. Tortoise shells and ox bones, painstakingly inscribed, served as tools for divination, but they also recorded the earliest forms of Chinese writing. Through these ancient notations, we glimpse early Chinese society, its leaders, and its customs. The scripts revealed the questions posed to their ancestors, encapsulating an early form of historical documentation and belief systems. And so, the secrets of these stone and clay narratives lay entwined with the land. Though the scribes themselves vanished into the annals of history, their works endured, whispering the tales of their people. These cryptic marks built a foundation upon which later civilizations would construct languages and documents, the early strokes of humanity's unending saga. From the etchings of Mesopotamia to the riddle of the Indus seals, we see not just the origins of writing, but the beginnings of a need to share, to record, and to remember. The centuries passed, and the world changed, but those early cryptic grooves in clay and stone continued to echo through time. They became the bedrock upon which later societies like the Phoenicians and Greeks would form alphabets, moving us ever closer to the libraries and manuscripts that would follow. An unending story, chiseled and impressed, where each mark carried forth a message from the past, urging future generations to listen. The story of invisible scribes traces back thousands of years, to the time when the first civilizations began charting unknown territories through writing. In these ancient societies, scribes were the custodians of knowledge, their work the invisible threads binding together the chronicles of their kings, gods, and everyday lives. This journey begins in the heartland of early civilization, tracing the footsteps of those who etched their legacy not with pictures or grandeur, but with words that crisscrossed boundaries long before such concepts existed. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, scribes were among the most learned individuals. From the 3rd millennium BCE, they used cuneiform, an ingenious script of wedge-shaped impressions on clay tablets, to record more than just accounts. Over time, their scope broadened to encompass the sagas of heroes and the proclamations of rulers. A scribe's hands were unseen, yet their work was deeply woven into the spiritual and civic life of their communities. Moving westward in Egypt, by 2500 BCE, the task of writing was elevated to a sacred position. Here, scribes carved divine instructions and royal edicts in hieroglyph upon temple walls. These narratives created a cultural tapestry that celebrated pharaohs and deities alike, inscribing ambitions into the very stones meant to stand eternally. Still, the labor of many remained hidden behind the grandeur. Most who chiseled with such skill never left behind a name. As our journey continues east to the rich lands of the Indus Valley, a different mystery unfolds. Here, the ancient Indus people etched symbols onto seals. These drawn characters remain a puzzle, whispering of trade, governance, and religion, yet their ineffable voice remains silent to us today. The inscriptions call out from a lost language, creating a compelling puzzle for historians and archaeologists. In Shang Dynasty China, around 1200 BCE, oracle bones formed the first known Chinese scripts, etched not just for prophecy, but to record significant happenings. Questions for ancestors were inscribed into tortoise shells and ox bones. These symbols offer glimpses into the lives and concerns of early Chinese society, forming a bridge between the mystical and the mundane. Here, the chroniclers recorded the world beneath their rulers, celebrating their way of life, ensuring that no matter the passage of time, their essence could be reconstructed from these enduring fragments. If you are finding peace in these archives, remember to subscribe to join us on the next journey. This dedication to chronicling the world had pervasive influences. As the Phoenicians developed an alphabet that later influenced Greek and Latin languages, they too borrowed from the idea of recording this knowledge, nurturing the growth of a new era of writing. Each region, with its unique approaches, quietly acknowledged the power words held. The scribes, those unseen artisans of language, played a role as crucial as any ruler or priest. Their work became the framework upon which later civilizations constructed knowledge, laws, and culture. Through these ancient inscriptions, we glimpse the dawn of recorded history. These early scribes, often obscured by the very achievements they spawned, provided the lineage upon which the grand libraries of the classical world would eventually rest. They were unlikely monuments of human progress, champions of cultural memory who etched the memories of empires. As civilizations grew and expanded, so did the scope of writing, culminating in the expansive documents of the Romans and the artistic flourishing in medieval Europe. These inscriptions from stone and clay set humanity on a path of recording and reflecting. Today, as pages flicker into screens and bits and bytes replace quills, the commitment to documenting life endures. For beneath the advancements, the methodical lines on a clay tablet still remind us of simpler beginnings. They whisper stories of an ancient world's perennial endeavor to chart the realm of the unknown. The beginnings of Encrypted Chronicles, a journey that began not with complex machinery or grandiose technologies, but with simple tools in the hands of unseen chroniclers. As we settle into this chapter, picture the people of ancient Mesopotamia, their civilization nestled along the Fertile Crescent. Around 3200 BCE, as city-states like Uruk and rose, writing took its first steps. Cuneiform, evolving from simplistic pictographs into a system of wedge-shaped marks, was honed by the unseen scribes of this epoch. Over time, this script formed the lifeblood of administration and storytelling. The scribes, mostly nameless, bore the burden of transforming oral tradition into writings that could stand the test of time. Their hands crafted sagas, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, etching tales of heroism and morality onto the clay tablets that have outlived their era. In these early days of recording, much of the narrative centered on divine will and earthly rulers, binding society around shared myths and decrees. Turning our gaze to Egypt, the sculptors of narrative there wielded tools against stone. By 2600 BCE, the art of hieroglyphic writing was in full bloom. In the cool shadows of temples, workers etched stories of gods and kings, agricultural notes, and legal edicts into enduring walls. These inscriptions bound the Egyptian people to their religion and rulers. While the great projects bore the names of kings, the artists behind these inscriptions were seldom celebrated, content instead to let their craft speak for them. The prolific use of hieroglyphs allowed Egypt to record its history lavishly, with chronicles that have echoed through millennia. Yet, perhaps the most enigmatic origin story is that of the Indus Valley script, dating back to around 2500 BCE, found on small, intricately carved seals. This script remains a mystery, an undeciphered enigma speaking across time from cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. These symbols hint at sophisticated social structures and vibrant trade routes, yet their meanings remain locked, sparking the imagination of linguists and historians who seek to unravel their silent language. To the east, in the ancient realms of China, the scribes of the Shang dynasty turned to oracle bones around 1200 BCE. These turtle shells and animal bones bore the earliest forms of Chinese writing. Used in divine rituals, they recorded the questions posed to ancient ancestors and the outcomes of these inquiries. Here, the fusion of day-to-day administration and mystical rites created a tapestry of social life that reflects early Chinese beliefs and practices. These early attempts at recorded history were not merely about practicality or control. They represented a desire to connect past with present, to eternalize human thought and experience. Despite the anonymity of many scribes, their work laid the groundwork for what would grow into the great literatures and records of humanity. Their clay imprints, stone-carved symbols, and bone-etched characters beckon us to listen closely. They tell us of the limits humanity was willing to breach in order to capture the essence of existence and ensure that learning transcended the ages. Their pioneering efforts created a blueprint for future civilizations, a skeleton upon which the Phoenician, Greek, and Latin alphabets would build, guiding the course of Western writing and beyond. As we journey from Mesopotamia to Egypt, from the Indus Valley to China, the invisible scribes ensured that each silent scratch and chisel marked a step forward in the march of human history, bridging time through their encrypted chronicles. The whispers of these early texts offer invaluable insight into how our shared history began, hinting at the untold future chapters of human endeavor. We find ourselves at a pivotal moment in the evolution of ancient scripts. As we explore the flourishing of writing systems across the early civilizations, it's a time where the simple act of recording thoughts began to transform societies. One such society was the Phoenicians, who, around 1050 BCE, took the leap from symbolic representation to the establishment of an alphabetic system. They simplified the cumbersome scripts of their neighbors into a set of 22 consonants. This system was elegant in its simplicity and utility, facilitating trade and communication across the Mediterranean, reaching as far as ancient Greece. This alphabet became the precursor to Greek and Latin scripts, influencing the development of modern Western alphabets. In contrast, the early Greeks, inheritors of the Phoenician script, began to craft their own alphabet around 800 BCE. This adaptation included both consonants and vowels, a monumental advancement which made reading and writing accessible to a broader segment of the population, beyond the scholarly or priestly classes. The simplicity and flexibility of the Greek script played a significant role in the recording of their myths, philosophies, and historical accounts, laying the groundwork for Western literature. As we move into the depths of ancient Greece, another form of writing took shape: the Codex. Unlike the scrolls that preceded it, the Codex allowed for easier access to various sections of text. Around the 1st century CE, this advancement in writing technology started to gain popularity in Rome and spread throughout the empire, revolutionizing how information was stored, accessed, and preserved. The codex was more durable than its predecessors and easier to manage, a leap forward in the preservation of knowledge that would later pave the way for the bound books we know today. Meanwhile, in the Indian subcontinent, another significant development occurred with the Maurya Empire around 322 BCE under the reign of Emperor Ashoka in the mid-3rd century BCE. Pillars and rock edicts across the empire bore inscriptions in the Brahmi script. These edicts, which spread Ashoka's policies and Buddhist teachings, were chronicled across the vastness of his territory. Brahmi would evolve into numerous scripts used across South and Southeast Asia, including Devanagari, which later accommodated languages like Sanskrit and Hindi. Emperor Ashoka's use of writing was not merely administrative. It played a role in cultural and religious integration, weaving together the diverse fabric of his empire. The script served as a medium, imprinting the emperor's vision and ideology across countless generations. It allowed for a unifying narrative that connected communities and cultures that were once fragmented. In this period of flourishing scripts, the focus shifted from recording isolated events to crafting narratives that spanned empires. The written word began to unify people under shared myths, histories, and laws. These scribes were still mostly invisible, but their legacy towers, forming the foundational structures of modern civilization. Their work serves as a reminder that how we document our past affects how future generations understand their place in the world. As these scripts evolved, so too did the complexity of the stories they told. The allegories and histories crafted in these growing alphabets and new forms of documentation offered not just recollections of facts, but interpretations of human experience and aspirations. From the Phoenicians' trade routes to the intricate Greek philosophies, from the succinct Roman legal codes to Ashoka's moral edicts, writing had become not only a tool for record-keeping, but an instrument for shaping the human condition. Such scripts, though born quietly, echo loudly across the ages. They stand as the testament to the continuity of human thought and the ability to build bridges across time and space, crafting an unbroken chronicle that still calls out to be heard, to be pondered, and to be understood as we now prepare to transition into the chapters of medieval manuscripts and the power of illumination. In the quiet corridors of time, we arrive at a moment where written communication begins to take on layers of mystery and intrigue. Picture the creators of intricate codices, working diligently by candlelight. The art of cryptic documentation has roots stretching deeply into the narratives of our early chroniclers, who sought not only to record, but to protect ideas and information. With every stroke of their quills or press of their chisels, they wove deliberately obscured tapestries that could only be unraveled by those possessing the necessary insight. One of the earliest examples of cryptographic thought appears in the Old Kingdom of Egypt, around the 25th century BCE, where hieroglyphics were sometimes intentionally obscured in royal tombs. These coded messages safeguarded spiritual and political secrets, ensuring that the wisdom reserved for worthy priestly interpreters remained intact, untouched by common hands. The elaborate designs and symbols, though fascinating to behold, served a dual purpose, as both narrative art and protective seals against the uninitiated. A few centuries later in ancient Greece, we witnessed the birth of what might be considered the earliest recorded secret communication device, the cityle. Used by the Spartans during the 5th century BCE, this tool was a simple wooden staff around which a strip of parchment was wrapped. Correspondence was written on these strips, and when unwrapped, the message appeared to be a jumble of letters, illegible unless wrapped around another cityle of the same dimensions. This ingenious method ensured that sensitive military strategies and orders could be transmitted securely, its code decipherable only by those possessing the matching staff, weaving security seamlessly into their legendary martial prowess. As the use of encrypted writing evolved, another fascinating cryptographic method emerged among Jewish scholars during the Middle Ages, a technique known as atbash, a simple substitution cipher, was employed in Hebrew texts to encode sacred information. Derived from the Hebrew alphabet, this cipher inverted the letter order, substituting the first letter with the last, the second with the second last, and so on. This form of encoding not only protected texts, but also added a layer of mysticism, encouraging deeper exploration for Enlightenment seekers. In the West, during the same period, monasteries became bastions for cryptic documentation. Monks diligently copied manuscripts by hand, occasionally incorporating mysterious embellishments into their illuminations. These manuscripts, often religious in nature, could include cryptic messages or symbolic codes understood only by the knowledgeable few. Such embellishments were not mere artistic flourishes. They were intentional encryptions safeguarding interpretative wisdom from the less informed. Moving slightly forward in time, we find ourselves in Renaissance Italy, a milieu ripe with esoteric knowledge. Here, cryptographers began developing substitution and transposition ciphers, laying the groundwork for more sophisticated cryptographic practices. The burgeoning field of cryptography attracted polymath minds such as Leon Battista Alberti. Known as the father of Western cryptology, Alberti advanced the study of ciphers with the invention of the cipher disk, a revolutionary tool allowing more complex encryption methods through variable alphabetic schemes. Echoing through these historical epochs, cryptic documentation served multiple roles: as protector, as communicator, and as puzzle. Each encrypted piece possessed the power to securely transmit messages through time and space, as well as to enhance the allure of discovering hidden truths. These early iterations of cryptography set the stage for the evolution of secrecy in communication, demonstrating an enduring human inclination for both connection and protection. As we forge ahead on this journey through history, the whispered tales of invisible chroniclers and their cryptic codices continue to unveil the depth of our ancestors' ingenuity, ever reminding us of the timeless marriage between written word and mystery. In the hushed halls of the Abbasid Caliphate, during what is known as the Islamic Golden Age, everyday life thrived on an intricate balancing act between innovation and tradition. This was a period between the 8th and 14th centuries, marked by significant progress in science, mathematics, and technology, deeply intertwined with daily practices and the intellectual pursuits of the era. Imagine the bustling streets of Baghdad, the heart of the Caliphate, where traders, scholars, and scribes moved through the marketplace, each playing a role in the grand tapestry of the city. Markets were vibrant, filled with goods from all over the known world, silks, spices, and metals exchanged with bustling activity. Yet beneath the commerce ran something subtler: the flow of information, safeguarded and shared by those who chronicled this wealth of knowledge. These scribes worked closely with the vast translation efforts supported by caliphs like Al-Mansur and Al-Rashid. This was especially true at the House of Wisdom, an epicenter of knowledge where learned men gathered to translate Greek, Persian, and Indian texts into Arabic. The labor of these invisible chroniclers was both cerebral and social, nestling between the lines of poetry and the formulas of mathematics. During the day, nobles of the Abbasid court might entertain themselves with discussions of philosophy and innovations in medicine, influenced heavily by Aristotle and Galen, newly translated into Arabic. These intellectual exchanges would often extend into gatherings called majlis, where poets, philosophers, and scientists would debate the intricacies of the world. Yet, it was the invisible chronicler, the scribe, who quietly ensured that these discussions transcended the limits of time, committed to parchment in astutely written texts. Beyond the grandeur of scholarly endeavor, the life of a scribe in the Islamic Golden Age was intricately routine. They followed a meticulous daily schedule, taking advantage of the golden light that illuminated their inks and papyrus. Their workshops, often modest, were rich in the scent of fresh parchment and ink, where the rhythmic sound of quills scratching surfaces created a meditative symphony. The scribe's tools were simple but effective: reed pens, ink made from soot, and an array of parchment. These instruments were their lifelines, connecting their hands to the thoughts of great minds. Under steady hands, the scripts varied, from stately Kufic script in official documents to the flowing lines of Nask on the pages of avid readers. Further afield, beyond the orderly confines of book-filled rooms, the ordinary citizens of the Caliphate were engaged in their own forms of cultural expression. Music and storytelling were central to their leisure. Thousands of miles of desert paths carried not just spices and materials, but also tales and songs, enriched by countless voices. Evenings in the communal areas of residences and caravanserais saw people gather to listen to the stories recounted by seasoned narrators. There was laughter over humorous poetry and admiration for the sheer beauty of verses, a continuation of oral traditions that scribes relentlessly attempted to preserve through their writings. The complexity of daily life in this era rested heavily on the coalition between preservation and innovation. As books multiplied, so too did the breadth of ideas. They served as vessels carrying the nuanced details of life, the vast economic networks, and the personal narratives pivotal to constructing multi-layered histories. Thus, illumination shone brightly not just from the thriving markets and magnificent structures, but also from the silent work of scribes who, through labor and intellect, captured the spirit of their age in text. It was a delicate balance, the ephemeral voice of oral storytellers and the permanence bestowed by the written word. As we allow the scene to settle, take a moment to consider how these scribes were not just invisible chroniclers, but key custodians of light in an era that continues to illuminate paths centuries later. From the bustling streets and scholarly gatherings, we transition towards a new chapter where the quill passes between cultures, finding its way into the monasteries of medieval Europe. As we quietly traverse the corridors of history, we arrive at a chapter where invisibility does not denote absence, but innovation. It was not merely the act of scripting words that defined success, but how cleverly these words could be hidden, protected, and encoded. The journey of encrypting chronicles took root deeply in these layered histories. Picture a world where words held power beyond their obvious meanings, where the stroke of a pen could shroud knowledge in secrecy, waiting to be unveiled only by the discerning. In ancient Egypt, as early as the 25th century BCE, the royal tombs harbored secrets nested within hieroglyphs. These symbols, sometimes complex and layered, contained concealed messages meant to be understood only by those versed in their intricacies, a cipher that still sparks the imagination of scholars today. The art of encryption wasn't about exclusion. It was about securing divine and royal wisdom for those deemed worthy, a protective seal against the mundane. Meanwhile, far to the west in Sparta, during the time of the Peloponnesian War around 5th century BCE, the Greeks introduced the cityle. This was a tool of war, a wooden staff around which parchment was wound to write messages. Unwrapped, these verses appeared a scrambled jumble of letters, a security measure ensuring only those with the same specially designed staff could discern military orders. Such an innovative method highlights an early intelligence in safeguarding critical communication, binding warriors in a silent contract of understanding. Moving on to Judaic traditions, the Atbash cipher reflects a simple yet profound approach to cryptology during the Middle centuries. This Hebrew substitution cipher involved a transformation, turning the first letter into the last, the second into the second last, and so forth. Not merely a precaution, it added an aura of mysticism to texts, challenging interpreters to engage more deeply with sacred scriptures, an intellectual encryption inviting contemplative decoding. In Europe, during the medieval era, monastic scriptoria housed the silent scribes who concealed messages within manuscripts. Monks diligently wrote by hand, occasionally embedding cryptic symbols within ornate embellishments and illuminations, codes understood only by a select few. This was a sophisticated safeguard of wisdom, transmitting knowledge through veiled artistry against the backdrop of religious devotion. Then, during the Renaissance, a time buzzing with esoteric exploration, cryptography reached new heights. Italian polymaths like Leon Battista Alberti expanded the art of cipher. Alberti's invention of the cipher disk around the 15th century was revolutionary, allowing for variable alphabets and more intricate encrypted messages. It laid the groundwork for modern cryptographic methods, enhancing the delicate balance between concealment and revelation. The evolution of encryption techniques reflects an age-old human desire to protect ideas. While the Citadel and Atbash served practical and spiritual roles, Renaissance techniques showcased an intellectual pursuit for privacy and innovation. Through encrypted chronicles, a silent conversation persists across ages, an intricate dance between secrecy and discovery, where every enigma challenges new generations to unlock the untold stories. Each of these innovations demonstrates a crucial leap in our historical narrative. They reveal a world deeply engaged with the layers of meaning in writing, where invisibility often meant the hidden strength to secure critical knowledge. With these cryptic echoes lingering in our minds, we are set to explore future chapters where the power of writing continues to evolve, unfurling secrets of yesterday to weave the chronicles of tomorrow. Nestled within the folds of time are tales of hidden histories, wrapped in symbols and ciphers. We begin our exploration in the prosperous realm that was medieval Europe. Here, the secretive service of scribes grew alongside the burgeoning cultures of the era. Within monastic walls, these early record keepers labored to keep knowledge alive. Much more than simple transcribers, the monks hid layers of meaning in the margins of their manuscripts, an extraordinary effort to preserve and protect wisdom amidst tumultuous times. By the 9th century, the Carolingian Empire's scriptoriums became epicenters of intellectual and cultural revival, leading to what is known as the Carolingian Renaissance. Monks toiled over their desks, utilizing new script styles such as Carolingian minuscule, a clear and legible hand, ensuring texts were readable and approachable for scholars of future generations. Within their monochrome pages lay vibrant stories and encoded information, accessible only to those who knew where to look. Despite their diligent work, their identities, like many before them, faded behind the parchments they brought to life. The narrative of cryptography during this time was not constrained to monasteries alone. In the heart of Italy, scholarly pursuits during the Renaissance fueled innovations in the cryptographic arts. Moving forward to the 15th century, cryptography took a quantum leap with the efforts of masters like Leon Battista Alberti. His invention of a cipher disk, a simple yet revolutionary device, allowed for systematic substitution of alphabets and created opportunities for more complex encrypted communication. This tool broadened the dynamic of coded writings, enabling statesmen and scientists alike to exchange thoughts insulated from prying eyes. Alberti's work signifies a pivotal shift in how societies processed and protected information. Where scripts recorded history and lore, ciphers guarded the personal, the political, and the strategic. Reflecting upon this era, it's clear how the Renaissance mindset encouraged the blend of art and science, leading to cryptographic methods that were both practical and philosophical. Traveling now from the shadows of Europe to ancient India, we encounter the realms of the Maurya Empire around 250 BCE here. Cryptic recordings weren't just seen, but felt through transformative edicts. The Brahmi script flourished under Ashoka, housing the emperor's decrees on morality and governance. Its versatility brought unprecedented cohesion to the culturally diverse empire. Even with its clarity, the Brahmi script integrated symbols and signs that held deeper connotations, forethought etched in stone. As we consider these unique intersections of writing across civilizations, we begin to see the crisscross of encrypted expeditions leading us to vast pools of hidden histories. From the shadowed alcoves of European scriptoria to the vibrant courts of a Mauryan emperor, these encryptions tell us much about who wielded power and knowledge in the earliest written traditions. They reveal that no matter the era or the region, safeguarding information was crucial, binding the past with the present. In this narrative of hidden histories and encrypted expeditions, each chronicler's toil serves as a gentle reminder of the intangible connections that link humanity across time. From these humble beginnings, we are prepared to step forward, tracing the influence of these encoded traditions into more modern forms of secretive communication, an explorative journey from the ancient world to the evolving digital age. Visualize a time when the world was in constant motion, when societies clashed and collaborated in their pursuit of expansion and knowledge. Knowledge, however, was not always shared in plain sight. To protect precious information, ancient civilizations became adept at encoding messages, setting the stage for centuries of cryptic warfare. In this chapter, we explore the intense, shadowy world of ciphers and concealment. Imagine the Roman Empire, where military leaders like Julius Caesar guarded vital tactics with coded communications. Around 58 BCE, Caesar devised a simple yet effective protective measure known as the Caesar cipher. His correspondence involved shifting the alphabet 3 places forward. This elementary form of encryption was enough to keep sensitive information from enemies, showing how secrecy could be wielded as a powerful tool in conquest and control. Cross the Mediterranean Sea to the Islamic Golden Age, where scholarship flourished and encryption took on new dimensions. During the 9th century, Arab scholars such as Al-Kindi made landmark strides in cryptography. In Baghdad, Al-Kindi authored a text on breaking codes, a manuscript on deciphering cryptographic messages. His work delved into frequency analysis, providing systematic methods to decipher encrypted messages, a fundamental advance in ancient cryptography. In this bustling metropolis, knowledge was safeguarded through these methods, ensuring that scientific advancements and strategic communications remained secure. Throughout Europe, by the medieval period, clandestine messages became increasingly sophisticated. Medieval courts employed cryptanalysts to decode secret messages, leading to the development of complex ciphers. The Vigner cipher, named after the later French diplomat Blaise de Vigner, constructed strings of encrypted correspondence that shifted the alphabet through a keyword, making simple letter frequency attacks difficult. This method, conceived in the 16th century, was known for centuries as le chiffre indéchiffrable, or the indecipherable cipher. Even amidst dynastic strife and royal intrigue, encryption methods evolved, protecting secrets with layers of coded complexity. Imagine now the courts of medieval Italy, in an era shaped by powerful families and political intrigue. The Medici family, renowned for its influence and wealth in Renaissance Italy, excelled in the art of covert communication. Hurried dispatches between city-states were encoded using various meticulous techniques. Renaissance Italy witnessed the merging of art and science through the enhancement of cryptographic tools, a reflection of the era's intellectual vigor. Across the English Channel, Elizabethan England faced its own cryptographic battles. The threats of espionage and sabotage loomed large. During the 16th century, spymaster Sir Francis Walsingham employed cipher clerks capable of encoding and decoding the kingdom's strategic missives. In 1586, the Babington Plot, an attempt to replace Elizabeth I with Mary, Queen of Scots, was foiled thanks to adept codebreakers. Walsingham's team decrypted letters, revealing deadly plans, and ensuring Elizabethan rule continued unchallenged by conspirators. From the ancient Roman battlefield to medieval courts and Renaissance intrigues, each period contributed to the growth of cryptography, emphasizing its unparalleled role in historical affairs. These wars of cipher and concealment demonstrate not only the strategic importance placed upon information, but also humanity's enduring quest to cloak messages with mystery. As we reflect on the skillful hands that penned encrypted narratives, we see how this legacy continues to impact modern communication. The end of an era always whispers the beginning of another. Each developed cipher laid a crucial link in the chain from ancient methods to contemporary encryption techniques that protect our digital world. This narrative crescendos into the 20th and 21st centuries, where encryption blankets global information networks, reminding us of the age-old games of hide and seek played across ages. In the intertwining paths of history, we find a world where the invisible hands of scribes and scholars crafted tales both known and hidden. Imagine a time when knowledge was not only power, but also a closely guarded secret. In this rich tapestry of coded chronicles, we uncover stories where revelations and renegades changed the course of human understanding, using writing as their unseen tool. Our journey begins with individuals who wore the mantle of secrecy as a badge of honor. These were the men and women whose insights forged new paths while remaining in the shadows of anonymity. The scribes of ancient times, like those in the realm of Mesopotamia, painstakingly pressed stories into clay or carved into stone. They recorded epics and triumphs. Each cuneiform mark on tablets felt urgent with the weight of posterity. Unseen in the annals of history were their contributions to encryption, developing the syllabus of cryptic communication. In ancient Egypt, alongside the towering pyramids, hieroglyphs danced on walls and monuments. Yet, beneath their beauty lay encrypted enigmas. Only the initiated could decode these symbols hidden from ordinary eyes. This was not cryptography by today's standards, but a deliberate layering of meaning, where temple walls spoke in riddles understood by priests, preserving divine mysteries across time. Turn now to the Mediterranean, to the sharp minds of the Greek philosophers and their libraries. Renaissance of thought flourished here, and in its pursuit, scholars embraced the art of encryption, albeit in its nascent forms. They wove fantasies into the narrative structures, mixing philosophical musings with coded messages. Debate and dialogue were revered and yet protected by the subtle use of evasive scripts, a silent dance of knowledge too revolutionary to rest in plain sight. With the passage of time, intellect found new advocates in the Islamic scholars of the Golden Age. Thinkers like Al-Kindi took the methodologies of their predecessors and experimented with complexity. His methodical approach to cryptanalysis revolutionized how codes could be understood and dismantled. His work on frequency analysis went beyond protective encodings to include the art of decoding itself, a scientific undertaking that unveiled hidden words and hinted at the potential for further refinement. Moving along this timeline, we arrive in medieval Europe, where the understated monasteries held within their walls invaluable scriptures. Monks were the invisible champions, inscribing religious works with subtle acts of encryption. Their marginal notes and careful illuminations served to conceal more than they revealed. Within their quiet halls, they crafted manuscripts that spoke to believers in nuanced hues, a spiritual narrative preserved for eternity but requiring interpretation by devoted eyes. Across these lands, cryptic language ebbed into political landscapes. The Renaissance unfurled a period where cultural exchange and rediscovery flourished. Cryptography saw its formal beginnings in the coded exchanges between states and empires. Cipher disks and substitution codes became instrumental in maintaining the clandestine communications essential to political maneuverings and power plays. Consider the renegades, those who manipulated words for revolution. Scribed in secrecy, letters that called for uprising and change were couched in encrypted form. Political dissidents across the ages turned to this hidden language, where whispers became the written word, urging for a reformation not yet born. Such acts of rebellion, shrouded in secrecy yet vital to societal progress, trace back to the unwavering resolve of those who dared to challenge the status quo. And so, the invisible chroniclers left marks not just on paper, but on time itself, revealing the untold but affecting the course of the wholly visible world. They are shadows in the timeline, the architects of written secrecy, and in laying the blueprints of cryptic communication, they ushered in an era where the power of words lay as much in what they concealed as in what they exposed. In the intricate world of ancient encrypted chronicles, the legacy of these hidden writings continues to touch our global history in profound ways. This chapter examines how encrypted narratives have shaped societies, stretching threads across time and continents. Picture, if you will, the indelible influence these early cryptographers had as they laid down the first lines of secrecy. These were the times when cuneiform scratchings on Mesopotamian clay, Egyptian hieroglyphic carvings, and coded Greek manuscripts became instruments not just of communication, but of power. Every script had the potential to change foreign relations and protect state secrets, setting the stage for societies eager to explore the boundaries of what could be shared or safeguarded. The Phoenicians, pioneers in developing an early alphabet, sowed the seeds for such global influence. Their script spread across trade networks, infiltrating cultures and languages across the Mediterranean. This was more than linguistic evolution. It was a silent proliferation of new ways to record, encode, and conceal information. As we cross the seas to medieval Europe, monastic scribes stand as the guardians of more than mere religious texts. They were crucial, too, in translating the encrypted legacies of the Greek and Roman worlds into forms that could outlive them, preserving knowledge that later sparked the Renaissance. Within these monasteries, they tucked away secrets inside the margins of texts, encrypting important messages that would spark curiosity and deeper inquiry. History whispered in unusual scripts, knowing well who might be listening. Renaissance Italy, a breeding ground for new cryptographic techniques, further transmitted this complex legacy. The Cipher disk, introduced by Leon Battista Alberti, brought encrypting languages to an entirely new level. His innovations allowed European powers to shield diplomatic correspondence, directly impacting political dynamics across the continent. Now, encrypted information could be relayed with unprecedented security, bridging nations with invisible lines of trust and control. Together with these tools came the moral and strategic implications woven into treaties and alliances. Secrets held in language ensured that not only did history move forward, but wholly new histories could be conceived at the hand of one who knew how to properly unlock or protect information. Let's not forget the global impact of the Islamic Golden Age, a time when scholars grasped the intricate balance of cryptography. Al-Kindi's work on frequency analysis in Baghdad introduced a method for unraveling encryption that scholars had not thought possible. This allowed information that could protect realms to be cracked when keys were shared, and led to an expansion in how encryption was perceived and challenged. Such breakthroughs fortified the link of shared and contested truths across empires. Even this far removed, the tethers of encrypted chronicles hold firm, a testament to humanity's enduring love of riddles and revelations. Each encoded story, whether captured in ancient empires or the Renaissance courts, revealed new ways to imagine cooperation and conflict. Each advancement increased the complexity of communication, and ultimately the course of histories yet too vast to foresee. Today, As we consider the global impact of these hidden legacies, we realize that the art of cryptography serves as more than a vehicle for secrecy. It is a tool of cultural and historical synthesis, shaping the laws and upheavals that continue to echo throughout modern society. It is a subtle but powerful force that threads through the unseen corridors of our narratives. These ancient links, wrought in clay and ink, remind us of our capacity to finally weave the narrative of our lives into something larger. They point us toward the reality that progress, while often hidden, leaves pronounced echoes through time, forever altering the way we experience the world. Hidden amidst the echoes of forgotten archives lay voices that once captured the ebb and flow of civilizations. In this realm of silence, the invisible chroniclers left their indelible mark on history, where words written were often lost to the sands of time. The narratives crafted by these unsung heroes were not always grandiose or celebrated, but they were undeniably profound. The journey into these echoes of silent scripts begins in the Roman Empire, where the creation and preservation of documents were paramount to governance and order. Roman scribes recorded laws, decrees, and annals, yet many of these writings have faded into obscurity, either destroyed by time or warfare. Their words, inscribed on papyrus and parchment, laid the groundwork for administration and culture, yet much is irretrievable, known only through references in other texts. Crossing into the Byzantine Empire, we find a civilization steeped in the reverence of written word and historic chronicles. Here, scribes preserved the legacies of ancient Greece and Rome, copying and annotating texts from philosophical discourse to scientific treatises. The Great Library of Constantinople, for instance, was a sanctuary for these documents, yet it faced numerous destructions, with fires consuming untold manuscripts, each loss echoing silence through the corridors of time. Moving further north into the realms of medieval Europe, the scriptoriums of the monasteries stood as bastions of knowledge. Monks and scribes worked tirelessly, copying texts by hand, ensuring the persistence of knowledge across generations. Despite their noble efforts, centuries of conflict, conquest, and changing climates saw many manuscripts lost or hidden. These forgotten works included not just religious texts, but also works of early science and history, underscoring the precarious nature of knowledge preservation. In the East, during the Tang dynasty in China, efforts to preserve history and culture also wrestled with the ravages of natural disasters and political upheaval. Many scripts, despite being critical records of the empire's rule and culture, were stowed away, only to be rediscovered centuries later in sites like the Dunhuang Caves. These caches tell stories of a sophisticated society replete with vivid art, scientific advancement, and Buddhist thought. Looking at the Islamic world's golden age, we find the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, where knowledge flourished. Scholars translated works from Greek, Persian, and Indian sources into Arabic. Yet as the Mongols swept through, the libraries of Baghdad were left in ruins. Many invaluable texts were lost, swept into rivers, their words washing away into oblivion. Efforts to comprehend these narratives are akin to piecing together fragments from a broken vase, trying to restore the vibrancy of a lost age. The journey into forgotten scripts amidst ruined archives reveals a timeline where human effort met the impermanence of paper and ink. These spaces, once teeming with information, now only tell stories of loss and resilience. Yet, with every rediscovery of a forgotten text, there's a rekindling of voices that once spoke clearly, assuring us that while silence may last centuries, the script can once again be sung from the shadows. Archaeologists often seek clues to the past as if they are piecing together a giant, historical jigsaw puzzle. As we delve into recent findings, we uncover some of the subtle remnants left by those who chronicled lives long ago, leaving behind encrypted messages waiting to be unearthed. These traces reveal the sophisticated methods used by our ancestors and the roles played by scribes whose identities were wrapped in mystery. In recent years, advanced excavation techniques and technologies have brought to light fascinating artifacts from ancient civilizations, helping us decode secretive methods that chroniclers employed to communicate indirectly. Many of these discoveries are not just about the artifacts themselves, but about what they reveal of daily life and governance in the societies that used them. One of the exciting finds comes from the ancient city of Ugarit on the Syrian coast. Excavations have uncovered a library of clay tablets written in an alphabetic script that predates many modern writing systems. These tablets do not merely list transactions or inventories. They hold songs, myths, and prayers encrypted with a rhythm and structure designed to preserve oral traditions. The comprehensiveness of this collection offers a glimpse into the literacy and intellectual currents that flowed through this Bronze Age city. Archaeological discoveries along the trade routes of Central Asia have revealed petroglyphs and carvings that carry encoded messages from travelers of the Silk Road. These etchings, some recently uncovered in the deserts of Uzbekistan, are thought to contain origins from various script systems, including runic, brought by traders and travelers crossing vast distances. They stand testament to the roles played by early cryptographers and the sustained efforts to conceal, yet communicate, messages under the cloak of commerce. In South America, the ancient city of Caral has started to reveal her secrets, turning up quipus, the Inca's enigmatic knotted cords. Although not recently uncovered, the study of these artifacts continues to evolve, with cutting-edge research suggesting that beyond their supposed accounting uses, quipus may have held stories or administrative details encrypted through complex knot arrangements. Each knot communicated volumes, allowing a society with no traditional writing to capture and preserve aspects of its world and policies. Moving to the sands of Egypt, recent analyses shine new light on the ostraca, pottery shards bearing inscriptions that served as informal notebooks for scribes. These artifacts show that Egyptian scribes had detailed practices for encrypting everyday accounts and communications, with scribal techniques including an informal use of hieratic script, allowing messages to be conveyed swiftly across distances. In India, the city of Dwarka, submerged and rediscovered, calls forth new understandings of ancient trade practices and civic life, with possible encryptions etched into stone and pottery fragments. These traces hint at sophisticated systems used not only for trade, but also for cultural exchanges and defense strategies. Across these varied sites, archaeologists piece together barely visible narratives, attempting to align them with known historical patterns. The insights gathered hint at a world judiciously shielded by encryption tactics, whose inhabitants strive to pass on stories, share information, and safeguard secrets through the quiet language of scripts waiting millennia to speak again. As we step into an era of faltering footsteps, we find ourselves tracing the delicate end of the invisible chroniclers. This chapter is not just an exploration of loss, but a meditation on the resilience and rebirth that often accompany dissolution. In the late Middle Ages, a soft transition began, where once flourishing centers of scholarship wavered under the pressures of changing times. The advent of new technologies and the shift in cultural and educational paradigms marked the waning influence of the invisible scribes. The rise of the printing press in the mid-15th century was one such pivotal moment, ushered in by Johannes Gutenberg. This innovation meant that handwritten tomes and scripts, painstakingly copied over decades, could suddenly be mass-produced. In an echoing room of a monastic scriptorium, one can imagine the air turning somber. Monasteries, which had long been the bastions of manuscript preservation, now slowly started to lose their prominence. As books became more accessible and literacy spread beyond the cloistered and wealthy, the need for scribes began to diminish. The knowledge once exclusively guarded within the walls of scriptoria was now reaching a broader audience, democratizing education, but also signaling a shift of the era. During this transitional phase, the meticulous skills of calligraphy and the scribe's artistry were still held in high regard. In many places, illuminated manuscripts continued to be valued as works of art and devotion. These manuscripts, resplendent with golden letters and vivid imagery, were seen as valuable relics of a dying craft. Libraries, once filled with whispered secrets and script-bound knowledge, began reorienting themselves towards printed collections. The changing world didn't just affect the content of preservation, but also the techniques of encryption. Cryptographers, who had long relied on the subtleties of handwritten codes, began exploring more intricate codes aided by printed type. Cipher systems evolved as communication did, shifting from manual transcription to devices capable of manipulating information. As human perceptivity in coding advanced, the invisible scribes saw their roles transform or vanish entirely into the annals of history. The dissolution wasn't immediate or monolithic. Certain areas resisted or embraced change more slowly, maintaining regional idiosyncrasies in their adherence to traditional methods. The Ottoman Empire, for instance, preserved Ottoman Turkish manuscripts even as printing became widespread elsewhere. Simultaneously, universal learning centers like universities sprouted, and as they grew, they nurtured the human desire to document knowledge in structured, widely available formats. Scholarly efforts increasingly aimed at compiling information rather than encrypting it. From mystic codices to scientific treatises, the focus now shifted towards sharing. These shifts laid the groundwork for the Renaissance explosion of thought. This was a spectral scribing of its own, where the loss of one era's venerable scribes inevitably fed the rise of a new epoch grounded on the printed word and boundless inquiry. As we close this chapter on the fading footprints of the invisible chroniclers, we recognize that their dissolution was not a disappearance, but a transformation. The contributions of the invisible scribes live on, encapsulated in the spirit of inquiry they championed, their whispers evolving into the spirited dialogues of modern academia. The path moves us to consider the new beginnings forged by these closures, setting the stage for the next great leap in the tapestry of human knowledge. As the stars shimmer gently in the tapestry of the night sky, we find ourselves contemplating the legacies of the invisible chroniclers. These silent scribes, through their dedicated craftsmanship, have whispered their narratives across the winds of time, leaving traces of their existence in the archives of history. Our journey has brought us here, where the echoes of written words reveal the enduring stories that still resonate in the fabric of our world today. In this tranquil reflection, we consider the early scribes who shaped civilizations with their quills and inks. They etched the tales of Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and ancient China into the annals of time. Though their names have often faded, their legacies remain. Each culture, with its own unique writing system, contributed chapters to the grand narrative of humanity. The early scripts they crafted, once mysterious, now provide clarity on the origins of our histories and the complexities of ancient societies. It is intriguing to consider how these unseen hands navigated the traditions and expectations of their times. We remember the Phoenicians, whose alphabet laid the foundation for Greek and Latin scripts, inspiring Renaissance scholars to revive and expand upon earlier forms of encryption. The role of these scribes, whether stationed in bustling Roman streets, solitary monastic cells, or the grandeur of Abbasid courts, was to preserve and protect knowledge. The encrypted methods they implemented ensured sacred and clandestine messages, endured the changes of political and cultural landscapes. Reflecting further, the role of scribes in the Islamic Golden Age comes into focus. These invisible chroniclers served as a bridge between ancient knowledge and future wisdom. Their translations and analyses spurred advancements in mathematics, science, and the arts. While Baghdad's House of Wisdom became a beacon of intellectual pursuit, the lessons of the past ensured the cultural blossoming across continents. As the printing press revolutionized knowledge dissemination, the scribes' roles transformed. Books became accessible to many, rather than the privilege of the few. Yet the precision of the quill was not forgotten. Rather, it evolved. What began with the silent script of the scribe became a symphony of thought that propelled societies into modernity. From Gutenberg's press to today's digital age, the journey reflects an ongoing quest for knowledge, chronicled and shared widely. Now, at the conclusion of our exploration, we pause to observe how the art of cryptography, once used by the Spartans and in Renaissance Italy, resonates in contemporary cybersecurity. Today's digital encryption methods trace their lineage back to these early practices, underscoring the endurance of the scribe's impact. In weaving the history of these invisible chroniclers, we emerge with a sense of gratitude for their tireless work. Even when their identities elude us, their messages endure, silent legacies whispering ancient tales as a reminder of the interwoven destinies of societies around the globe. Time moves on, but the stories crafted by these silent scholars glow warm in the bound volume of world history, encouraging us to seek out the stories yet untold. As they turned ink into immortality, we turn pages into understanding, forever listening to the voices of the past as we chart the narratives of our future.